All right, fantastic. We are now recording. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us for this session of the Belize Real Estate Recap for 2023. And we're going to go through a couple of ideas as well for what the real estate market we think will look like in 2024. Obviously, they'll just be projections and predictions, but it is looking like a good year ahead at this point. Anyway, my name is Rachel Jensen. I'm the broker owner of Luna Realty Belize here on Ambergris Caye. This is home. I've been living here for the last almost 12 years at this point. I'm originally from New York, made my way down here in 2012. I was working with a real estate developer for 10 years, left the development company about 2 years ago, and decided to still stay in the real estate space here. I think it's a fantastic market, tons of opportunities, and wanted to be able to offer options and opportunities to folks who are looking at owning real estate down here. So as I mentioned, Ambergris Caye is home. I do go back and visit the States every now and again, but this is where I am based full time. I also sit on the board of real estate here in Belize. We do have a couple of associations that have recently merged. And so it's been fun, I'd say, since Belize is known to be a fairly unregulated market. We are working on adding some regulations into the real estate market here, such as licensing for real estate agents. I know one of the big topics that has come up quite a bit is the central MLS system. So crossing fingers, as long as it's not all in Belize time, we do plan to have the licensing and the central MLS in play in 2024. So really good things underway, but mentioned to you that this really is home here. And first I came down really to Ambergris Caye because I was working with that real estate development company. They had properties all throughout Central America. They were starting their operations here in Belize. Truly, at that point, had no idea where Belize was. They said, do you want to go to Ambergris Caye? Typed it into Google, and I was like, yeah, sure, it looks beautiful. I didn't have any obligations at home. So I hopped on a plane, landed in San Pedro for the first time. At that point, I was 22 years old, 21 years old. And I was like, this really just feels like home. And if you've been to San Pedro or Ambergris Caye before, you know how friendly the people are. And it really is a small town. Ambergris Caye, of course, is a small town, but you get that small town feel here. And after more and more time of spending here, people start waving to you as you're driving in the golf carts. And, you'll start to get those random discounts at the grocery store or the locally owned shops. And it really is a place that becomes home. And so we get that quite a bit, as a lot of times people come down here on vacation or will come down not really expecting to fall in love with it as much as they do. And next thing you know, they're looking at real estate, they're moving, and this is the place that they decide to call home for a while. So if anybody has any questions about that transition or spending long periods of time here, feel free to ask me. We have a great team as well of realtors who work beside me who can also help guide you through that. Most of them have been through that transition themselves. If they are an expat, we do have a team of locals as well, but we do have a great group of people who've made that transition and really understand what it's like. It's not always rainbows and butterflies here in Belize. There are certainly challenges and hiccups at times, but of course we want to help set those expectations for you and guide you through it as easily as possible. So I'm estimating that this is going to be about 45 minutes. We are recording this, so this will be put up on YouTube afterwards. So if you're listening on YouTube after the live session, if you have any questions, feel free to email us there, info@lunarealtybelize.com. You'll see that on the bottom left. And then for anybody who is on the session here, we will use that Q&A section of the control panel for questions, or you can always email us as well if you prefer to do that instead of have it be answered live. So first, we're going to go through the market benefits considerations, go through a recap, and then, of course, predictions for 2024. We're going to go through Ambergris Caye updates and then opportunities to keep an eye on in 2024. So there's a lot going on in the real estate market right now here in Belize. We're going to be really focusing on Ambergris Caye for this session. If you have questions about any other part of the country, feel free to email those over to us there, info@lunarealtybelize.com. Our team members will be in touch with you to discuss markets outside of Ambergris Caye as well. So I want to go through a couple of market benefits with you because this is really important for you to know as a foreigner who's coming into the country to own real estate. Number one is that as a foreigner, you will receive title to your property. When you're purchasing property, you'll go through a due diligence process. The closing agent or attorney will do a title check for you, ensure it is clear title. If it's not, they'll let you know. But assuming that it is, then you'll continue on with that real estate purchase. So Good news there is that you can receive title to your property. Now, there may be some exceptions where it's a leased property or something along those lines, but you'll go through that with the closing attorney and hopefully your real estate agent before you get to that point of closing. Also, property taxes are very low in Belize. It's 1% of the unimproved land. So it does not matter what structure is built on the land, it is taxed at 1% of the unimproved land. In addition to that, rental income tax here in Belize is low. It's 1.75% of the gross. And so that's a big benefit. I know I've had clients who are looking at ownership of real estate in Panama and Colombia and Costa Rica. And one of the big reasons that they came back to Belize is because the rental income tax is the lowest within the region. Also, capital gains tax is ideal at 0%. So when you buy real estate here, we'll say for 200,000, you sell it in a few years for 250,000, you pay 0% capital gains tax here in Belize on that $50,000 gain. Now, in your home country, these are not numbers for your home country. You'll have to talk to your accountant about the income tax and capital gains tax and how you'll be taxed in your home country. This is really just strictly for Belize. Also, British common law is practiced, which leads us to number 6 there, where English is the official language. Because Belize is a former British colony, we do have the benefits here of it being a common law country, which is very familiar for folks who are from North America. And also English is the official language. So all of the paperwork that you'll have, all of the listing agreements, all of that will be in English, which just gives us a lot of peace of mind. I know for me, I spent a lot of time in Nicaragua and Panama, and coming here was like a breath of fresh air because I could talk to the person who is connecting on my internet or read my electricity bill, right? Things like that that really do make a big difference in your day-to-day life are easier, I would say, when you're in an English-speaking country, if English is your native language. Now, I do want to talk about a few considerations as well, because this is not really highlighted too well when you're looking at real estate here in the country. The first one is that there's a stamp tax. This is a transfer tax that is charged by the government of Belize to transfer the title from the original owner to the new owner. And that stamp tax is 8% of the purchase price plus closing agent fees, which are typically about 2%. The closing agent is the company that will do the title transfer for you, hold the money in escrow, make sure the agreements and everything look good. That is about 2%. It does vary though per closing agent, but this is just a very general rough percentage there. So I put there ish. It's about 10% is what you should allocate on top of the purchase price for your, for your closing fees, 10% ish, in addition to what you see the purchase price being. Number 2, and I talked about this on the YouTube channel quite a bit and in our shorts, is that traditional bank financing is not available to foreigners. So if you're coming here into Belize as a foreigner, you go to the local banks, you're anticipating getting great financing, it's not going to happen. The bank does not have any idea who you are. They have nothing that they can really do. I guess they can foreclose on you, but they don't know you, right? They're not going to loan to somebody that they don't know and can't get history on. So if you want financing, you typically have to work with a seller that is offering financing. It's really important for you to disclose to your real estate agent if you are going to be requiring financing, so that they're able to identify properties that have that seller financing option. About 20 to 25% of the opportunities on the market today are offering seller financing, but it's not necessarily a common thing here to find, majority of the sellers are offering that. So really important for you to bear that in mind. And then also when it comes, write this down, this is actually really important if financing is important to you, is that traditional terms here for seller financing, it's higher than what you're anticipating likely. It's 50% down, typically anywhere from a 3 to 5 year term or balloon, and interest rates anywhere from 8 to 10%. So the term is short. 3 to 5 years is typically what we see in terms of seller financing. So you do have to have that capital and that cash to put down that bigger chunk than you may anticipate upfront if there is seller financing. If there's not any seller financing, then you really need to anticipate putting that 100% down cash in order to close on the property. I want to highlight here number 3. This is really, really important because this is something brand new, and today's December 27, 2023. This is very new in the real estate bill. There is a change that is coming to the real estate bill. They haven't given an exact date for it yet. By the time someone's listening to this later, it may have already happened, but just be aware is that all real estate transactions will be charged that stamp tax. So I mentioned to you that 8% up here, number one, when there's a transfer of land, transfer of property from one person to another. Previously, there was a loophole that if you had that property in a company and then you transferred the shares of the company, then you did not have that 8%. It was a much smaller fee. And that was a very common way for some developers here to be selling properties. That's changing. That may be changed by the time that you listen to this. So there will still be that about 8% stamp tax, regardless of how you are taking ownership of that land. It doesn't matter if it's a share transfer. It does not matter if it is in someone's personal name. It doesn't matter if it's however it's being structured, you'll still have that general stamp tax. So this is very, very important to note because again, like I mentioned, I know some developers are really pushing this as a reason to be buying that specific property. But because of the fact that closings here take a little bit of time, you know, by the time you actually close, this may have already been changed. But this is very, very important for everybody to understand. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. Feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to explain it to you a little bit more in depth. I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse here. So Belize, obviously, it's a wonderful country. That's why we're talking about it. I'm assuming that's why you're all here. Size-wise, it's about the size of Massachusetts. And within the country, as you can see, there are different districts, different areas of interest, highlights that people are coming to the country for. Now, the number one tourism location in this country, the place that produces 70% of the tourism revenue for the entire country, is this little island up here, Ambergris Caye. Ambergris Caye was, I'd say, not necessarily founded, but becoming more popular in the 70s and 80s by scuba divers and fishermen. Because if you can follow my cursor, the reef parallels the island. When we look out the window, we can see the waves breaking in the near distance. That's the reef. And because of our proximity to the reef, we get the water bugs down here. We get the people who want to dive, fish, snorkel, because we have such close proximity to the reef of being about 5 minutes away by boat. So that's really one of the big reasons and one of the big factors that sets our island apart compared to the rest of the areas within the country. Having that proximity to the reef is key when it comes to people who want to be in the water, spending their time diving. We don't have to worry about being on a boat for 45 minutes or 2 hours to get to the prime dive locations. It's right here in our front yard. So you can get to Ambergris Caye one of two ways. One is a puddle jumper, those little planes. It's about 15 minutes from Belize City, which is where that star is. And the second option there is by water taxi. It takes about an hour and a half. And you can go between Belize City and Ambergris Caye really quite easily. There are two airports in Belize City. One is the international, the other is the municipal. If you're flying in on an international flight, you can catch the puddle jumpers from Belize City International Airport to the island, or perhaps you're spending more time in Belize beforehand on the mainland. You can always fly out of the municipal airport in Belize City versus going all the way back to the international airport. So with that being said, I'm going to talk generally about the market here on Ambergris Caye, and then we're going to get more specific into the numbers and the details. High season here in Belize and specifically on the island is US Thanksgiving. So November, end of November through April, that's high season. There's peak season, which we're in right now. Peak season is when it is extremely busy here. Rental rates are at an all-time high. It's a very popular time to come down. Spring break time, that month of March typically is considered peak season, Easter. And then we have shoulder season, the May, June, July, and then slow season, August, September, October. So do bear that in mind if you are planning to come down. We had a very busy slow season. I would say in terms of people who are visiting, you'll see the tourism charts in just a minute, but also it was a prime time for investors to be coming down. Kids were out of school. They were able to take their families. You're getting lower rental rates, so you're not necessarily paying a premium to get here and look at rental property. You can get into the property. So it was a very, very busy summer season. But in terms of rental income, occupancy, we're seeing this high season is US Thanksgiving. So we'll say November through April. Now note, I know there are a handful of people who are joining this session or listening to this session who are coming down in high season. If you're planning to look at real estate at the time of this high season, understand that you may not be able to get into the property that you want to see if it is in the rental market. Because it is high season, the sellers want to get rental income from it, and it will likely be rented. So bear that in mind. It is possible typically to have your agents do virtual walkthroughs with you on Zoom. You have your phone, connect up, or you're able to get some great photos, and then obviously see all that before you come down to see if it is a place that you're interested in. You can at least walk the grounds when you're here. But I do like for people to be aware of that, especially if the purpose of you coming down is a scouting trip. Now, all the time I get asked about how long a property is going to be on the market for. It's like this everywhere in the world. If it's good value, the property is going to go quickly. I know we've had clients come down and they've looked at multiple properties. The one that they really liked was the one that was either just listed or just one that felt right to them. And then it got snatched up before they got home or as soon as they got home. And that's not typically uncommon here. Better value, the quicker it's going to go. There are some properties that are on the market for longer than others. But do note that if you're seriously looking at real estate here and you see something that feels right, I'd say work with your agent to put an offer in. At least you can put some contingencies in there, but you don't want it to get swept out from under you because it is getting harder and harder to find the good value buys here. I do receive the question about what's a fair offer to make. Obviously, that depends entirely on the property, depends how it's priced. Sometimes properties are overpriced here, right? It's happened everywhere where the seller wants and contributes to the price of what the listing price should be. And of course, sellers always feel a little bit more intimately tied to their property and the numbers may be higher, but obviously you'll talk to your real estate agent about it. But I'd say typically we see that offers are getting accepted if they're about 10% off the listing price. Depends on how it's priced, obviously, but up to 15% maybe, but typically up to about 10% off the listing prices where we'll start to see offers get accepted. And then at this point, we're seeing that there's a stable sales pace. I was in real estate here, been in real estate here since 2012, and saw during those COVID years, like 2020, 2021, even parts of 2022, the sales were just going crazy, right? People were buying like crazy because interest rates were low in their home country. They were refinancing properties, taking out the cash and then putting it towards properties here. Now, obviously, with inflation, with the interest rates going up, that slowed down, and I'd see it's really been stable here. So it's not necessarily going so hog wild crazy, but it is at that point of stability. And I would say it's at the point of feeling comfortable. Now, there's a handful of construction happening here. I've just highlighted a couple of noteworthy developments that are currently under construction. Sunset Creek is located 2 miles north on the lagoon side. These have one bedroom starting at about $325. They're on there once you think it's a fourth building right now, and doing pre-construction sales of that. And they have lofts starting a little bit lower. I'm not sure. I got to check to see their latest inventory list, but I know those lofts go pretty quickly because they were priced in the upper 200s. Bananas on the Beach is also a noteworthy property that I would recommend. That's located about 2 miles south. That's under the same management as Sunset Creek. And so if you're somebody looking for a rental property, an affordable rental property on the beach, Bananas is a great option for you. They have hotel suites starting at about $150,000 and then working up from there. Beachfront, and this property is about $450,000. So just to give you a heads up there. Aruna, located half a mile west. I really like this property because of its location. It just feels very different compared to other properties here in on the island. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but when you're buying rental property here, you really need to identify a property that's unique in order for it to rent well. These started about $180,000. Grand Bayman, this was branded as a Best Western property about a little over a year ago. This is located half a mile south of the heart of downtown. These started about $115,000. And then a couple of other properties that I did want to mention were Platinum Point. This is a new subdivision going on about 8.5 miles north. And then Turquoise Seas, which is a secret beach condo project. And I'm going to get into these a little bit further on in the presentation here, but I just wanted to highlight some of the noteworthy ones. There are a lot of projects under construction. If you've heard of one that I didn't highlight here and you have questions about it, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer that for you. But these are the ones that I found in doing research, being here for a while, that are just a little bit different, a little unique, and I think will rent well. I apologize if that text is cut off there at the top a little bit, but this says the number of visitors from January to September of 2023. And these numbers come directly from the Belize Tourism Board website. You can see the URL link there. I'll put that in the description on YouTube as well. But you can see here that the numbers are broken down by location, by destinations. And excuse me, when we look at San Pedro over here, if you can follow my cursor, San Pedro is leading the charts when it comes to the number of estimated visits at this point in 2023, at about we'll round up to about 79,000 visitors. So you can see when you just quickly scan that total, that San Pedro is the highest by far. Historically, we've been in competition with Caye Caulker and Placencia, but you can look at the numbers there for Caye Caulker at about 35,000, and then also Placencia, which is also about 35,000, and you see that we've doubled that when it comes to the number of visitors here. So not necessarily direct competition, I would say, but of course it is a destination that's on the beach. So could be used as a comp when you're looking at real estate here. Now note, this is just January through September. When doing this presentation at the end of December here, they did not have the rest of the years filled out yet, but you can certainly check back there on the Belize Tourism Board website to see. I would say it takes them a couple of months in order to get all the data in and to get the numbers updated. But just good for you to know too, when you're looking at rental property here in the country, identifying where the interest is, where the demand is, and then feeding that demand. That's really what it comes down to. And this is just in more of that visual chart. San Pedro is the green line above when it comes to the number of visitors coming to the destination compared to the other ones. And you can see that behind it is the Cayo district. Cayo is more of a jungle area. That's where you have the cave tubing, the Mayan ruins, the rivers, and that lush jungle landscape. So you can see they're two very different, I'd say, geographies. However, we do tend to see that people pair those two destinations when they come here to the country. So they'll pair up doing some jungle activities with the water, reef and land, or what is surf and turf is a common way to describe it. But you can see when it comes to competition with other beach destination, Hopkins, Placencia, Caye Caulker, Ambergris Caye, San Pedro really is in the lead. Now, I do sometimes use San Pedro and Ambergris Caye synonymously, but I do want to clarify that Ambergris Caye is the entire island. San Pedro is the primary town here on the island. However, there are a lot of little neighborhoods, but it is sometimes used synonymously. So I apologize if it's confusing. Now, when it comes to rental properties, there's a great website called AirDNA. It costs about $80 for the year to be able to go into it and get numbers and statistics like you're going to see here on the screen. If you are somebody who's serious about rental properties and you want to dig a little bit deeper into the market here, get yourself a subscription and dig deeper, right? Do that digging into it. This is some information that I've pulled. The numbers here are in US dollars. So, excuse me, bear that in mind, but this is just a highlight of the San Pedro market. Now, it doesn't include all of the opportunities on Ambergris Caye, and they did have it segmented between San Pedro, and then it couldn't gather all of the Ambergris Caye into this one submarket. However, this is really just for San Pedro town and then just a little bit north and south. So when you look at the quick numbers here, annual revenue, this is from December last year through about November of this year, and this is per condo or per property that's listed on AirDNA. This is the average, right? Is about 50,000 US dollars. And note what AirDNA does is it aggregates the information from Airbnb and from VRBO. So the information that you see in here is that information. So it doesn't go to like booking.com and Expedia and pull that. This is strictly from Airbnb and VRBO for short-term rentals. That's what STR indicates. So you can see here, I do want to highlight that the rental demand is 26, which looks a little low, I would say, for San Pedro. So I say if you're somebody who is looking at buying a rental property here, what I would highly recommend is looking at the rental history. If the property is already constructed, if it's a project that's pre-construction or under construction, is really understand what makes that property unique, because there are a lot of rentals here. You can see right up here, it says there are 452 active short-term rental listings. That doesn't include everything, right? This is Airbnb and VRBO. So there are a lot of rentals here, a lot of properties, and you really need to identify what's going to make your property unique, or what makes that development unique enough to have a strong rental market there. And that's where your real estate agent comes in. We're very happy to go through this information with you and to provide you with properties and developments that are doing better than others. Or if you're looking to get into a new property or a constructed property, tell you why we think that would be a good option for the rental market. So these numbers, again, are in US dollars. Average daily rate about $250 a night. Occupancy rate is about 52%. Pre-COVID, we were at about 52, 54% occupancy. And we're at that point now where we are starting to see that the numbers are coming back. So I pulled a couple of examples from this website of current rentals that are on the market right now. Do note these numbers are in Belize dollars, so we just have to cut them in half. But just for you to see the potential that when you're picking the right property, you have the opportunity to do very well. Now, if you haven't spent time here, if you're not really sure about the market, that's why having somebody who's here on the ground is really an important part of that process. But this is a beachfront property in the Tres Cocos area, located about half a mile north of town. And you can see here that their annual revenue, and again, this is Belize dollars, is about 184,000 Belize dollars. So you're looking at about 90,000 US, a little bit more than that. Occupancy here was 78%, which you can see is over 20% higher than the average occupancy. So this is a well-performing property with an average daily rate of about 1,000 Belize dollars, so $500 a month, $500 a night US. So you can see for this one, I'd say that the big selling points are the location. It's a great location in Tres Cocos. It's beachfront. It has this, really unique vibe. It's more of that beachy vibe there with the colored signs and the pool and the sandy beach. You can walk right out onto the dock. So it has some really unique selling points there. Now, this is another property that is doing really quite well. This is one, I'm actually live right by this one, and I do see renters here all the time. This one had an occupancy of 72%, 4-bed, 4.5 bath, has that pool, that large front yard, we'll say, with the beach right there. And this one, they're bringing in about 600,000 Belize, so about 300 US. So again, great potential, great opportunity. But what these two homes are doing well is catering to the groups that are coming down, right? So they're, again, something to think about is who are you going to be serving? What makes the property unique? Why would people want to stay there? But again, a lot of factors that go into it. And then I pulled off a condo here, or a villa. And so you can see annual revenue about 100,000 Belize, so 50,000 US, 1-bed, 1-bath, and 60% occupancy, higher than the average island occupancy. So again, a great website to be using, but I'm happy to go through with these with you in greater detail. Just wanted to show you what is possible here when you are looking at the right property. Now, talking about current market conditions. So do note that the information that we pulled this from does not include new developer sales or pre-construction sales or single family homes. This is strictly for condos. A lot of times, and I'd say a majority of the inquiries that we receive are from people who are looking for 2-bedroom condos, and they're typically wanting it to be in that $300,000 to $350,000 range. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news here, but the average price for the 2-beds condos that were on the market as of today were $433,000. We're going to round up to 434,000 US dollars. This is in US dollars right now. So you can see it's been fluctuating throughout the year. This does not necessarily mean that prices have gone up or prices have gone down. It just means that the value of what's out there on the market right now in terms of 2 bedrooms varies compared to what it was earlier this year. There's luxury 2 bedrooms on the market for $750,000 right now. And you can find an older 2-bedroom for about $350,000 on the market right now. So there's a large fluctuation in what's out there when it comes to 2 bedrooms, but just good to understand. I think, because this is Belize and this is a developing country and we're in Latin America, Central America, some people think that Belize is inexpensive or, for lack of a better word, cheap. And it's not really like that anymore. Maybe 10, 15 years ago it was. I think 10, 15 years from now, it'll be a totally different market. And people who are getting in now will be very happy that they did. But you can see that the prices here are still significant. However, we are seeing an increase in prices generally. And compared to when we did our market update in September, there were the same number of 2-bedroom condos on the market. Again, this does not include developer sales or single family homes. This is for 2-bedroom condos. Doesn't mean there were no sales between September and December. It just means that when something was selling, there was something else that was coming to market at the same time. So you can see here, July, there was more 2 bedrooms on the market, but we did see that the summer months really quite busy when it came to sales. So I'm going to just give you a couple more averages, and then we'll start to go into the predictions and the fun stuff. So when it comes to single family homes, 3+ bedrooms, if you're looking on the beachfront, all priced in US dollars now. When you're looking at beachfront 3-bedroom plus homes, it's about $1 million. If you're looking within a development or off beach, you're looking at about 400,000. Home sites, if you're located in town in San Pedro town, not necessarily a view or anything, you're looking within the 60 to 100,000 US range. Secret Beach is between the $30,000 to $75,000 range. If you're beachfront, whether Secret Beach or anywhere on this island, you're looking at about 400,000 if it's accessible, and then 250,000 US if you are lagoon front with utilities. Now, we mentioned this earlier, is that do remember that Belize is primarily a cash market. So it does take longer for homes and land and properties generally to sell. Single family homes, because they do tend to be priced higher, typically sell between 6 to 18 months, condos 3 to 14 months, and then land 2 to 12 months. Average build cost right now is about $210 a square foot US, with high-end and luxury builds at about $300 a square foot. So that does not include land, and that does not include if you have to put in a water system or a septic, and that typically is the case if there is no water or utilities. No, it doesn't include solar. This is really just for the construction cost of property. And then when it comes to your return on investment, your average, you're looking at about 4 to 6% net. Can be higher, can be lower, just depending where in the world it is, or where on the island rather, where in the island it is that you are investing. So let's talk about what we predict happening in 2024. So we know it's an election year coming up in the United States. I follow politics just enough to know what's going on in the States here in Belize and within our little communities. We don't really talk about politics in the States, but I do understand that it is an important factor for people, especially if you are really following it. And a lot of people determine whether or not they're going to stay in the country based on who the winner of the election is. Doesn't matter which party. We have people who are very, very uncomfortable living in their home country if whoever becomes president. So with that, with it being an election year in 2024, I do predict that there will be a larger number of sales towards the end of this year going into 2025. Because people are at that point of throwing their hands up and saying, I want to go live somewhere and not think about this nonsense, which is how we do tend to live down here. So just something to bear in mind there. So I'd say end of this year through early next year, we'll start to see an increase in sales regardless of who the winner of the election is. In addition to that, the Canadian refinancing is coming up from the COVID numbers. I know in Canada that every 5 years with a loan, you have to refinance. And for those that picked up the 2020 COVID interest at 1-2%. The 5th year is coming up in 2025. So you are starting to think about that in 2024. So that may slow down the Canadians that are purchasing here, but we are seeing that prices are stabilizing. There are still some crazily priced and great value properties that are coming on the market, but I'd say generally the numbers that we see and what prices are going for are quite fair for the product that you're getting here. And for the rental income that you'd be receiving. Now, I do foresee that inflation to be dropping in 2024. But just my general opinion, 2023 was wild when it came to inflation. I do predict that that's going to stabilize a bit. But overall, I anticipate for the sales to continue to be stable again towards the end of the year, have it be a little bit crazier. But I do think cash properties will continue to be sold steadily, but more people are going to look into financing. I know there is this whole thought of the recession coming and, what does that mean for people who are looking at real estate here? But I can tell you from 2008 to 2012, there was still quite a steady market here in Belize, regardless of what was going on in North America with the real estate crash there, because folks still had cash to be purchasing. That's when they were coming in and picking up some better deals. But I do predict it to continuously be a stable market for the upcoming year here. Now, on the island specifically, there's been a ton of great progress happening. This has been a really incredible year, I would say, for the island of Ambergris Caye. We are in the middle right now of the holiday season, and the island is so festive. I love it this time of year. Christmas lights everywhere. If you're from the north, it may be a little strange to come down and to see Christmas lights and Santa everywhere, especially if you're used to it being colder and we're all in short sleeves here. But we did just have the Christmas parade, the golf cart Christmas parade, which was a lot of fun, and the Christmas tree lighting in Central Park, which is neat. And Santa came and gave out gifts to the kids. So just a really festive and fun time to be to be here on the island. In addition to that, the roads are getting paved. This is huge because for those of you who've been here before, you know that infrastructure is not necessarily the strongest point of island living. A lot of the roads getting paved are in the local neighborhoods, which is incredible because it'll just be easier access for locals and folks in those neighborhoods to be able to get into town. But we do anticipate for the road going north to be fixed as well in 2024. In addition to that, the end of this year, the hospital and new gas station opened. There's the Ambergris Hope Hospital. This is a private clinic that is opened up. This is just before you get to Kmart, that roundabout here, and known as Dr. Danny's place for those of you who've been, but this is really huge. It's 24-hour emergency. Previously, the only place that was open 24 hours was the polyclinic, and then just a handful of other amenities there within the hospital that just were previously not available before. So this is huge, huge news, especially for people who want to relocate here or are thinking about the amenities and really just the general living here on the island. And then also that new gas station opened up just north of the bridge. This is great for the folks that live north or live in an area closer to this area because it means getting gas will be a lot easier. So a lot of things going on the island, a lot of progress for those who've been here before. You know that these are really huge things to be factored in, and I just wanted to share the good news with you. All right, so typically highlight Ambergris Caye. The island is about 26 miles long, and I mentioned to you that the island Ambergris Caye with San Pedro being the primary focal point, the primary town. However, there are neighborhoods north and south of San Pedro town, but right now the airstrip to come into the island is located in San Pedro, and then also there is the water taxi station right here within San Pedro too. So you'll get to the island by coming to San Pedro, and then from there you'll disperse north or south, depending on where you're staying. Now, where you see this pin, that is the bridge, and the bridge connects the north and south. And so when we give references to locations, we'll say like half a mile north or 4 miles south. And it's that point from that distance from that point. So north or south. So just a heads up when I say that point to me in the bridge. So you're going north, X miles north, X miles south of the bridge or town. All right, so now I just wanted to highlight a couple of neighborhoods or areas to watch, because I do find, based on conversations that we're having with people, that these will be areas or neighborhoods that will be of high interest to people in this upcoming year here. One of them is a new subdivision that's happening up north, and it's a newly subdivided subdivision called Platinum Points, located 8.5 miles north. It is in close proximity to electricity, which is huge, but you can see Sapphire Beach in this location here. But again, 8.5 miles north, there's a phased release happening right now. It does have road access, so you can get there. And the initial lots are starting at about 49,000. I think this is a great alternative to Secret Beach. Secret Beach is one of those areas where there's just tons of lots, about 2,500 lots there. So if you're looking for something a little bit different and don't necessarily want to be within that big subdivision there, it's a great alternative. I would say this is an ideal property for somebody who wants to land bank. We've seen progress on the island moving in a northward direction. There's electricity going to the northern part of the island, which is huge. And in addition to that, the roads are getting graded and paved to go up north. So I'd say if you're somebody who has 5-10 years to just buy property now, hold on to it. We call that land banking, where you bank the land, then this could be a great option for you. And if you see anything that you want more information about, just reach out to us. Email address there, info@lunarealtybelize.com, info@lunarealtybelize.com, and we can certainly get those details to you. But this is a 60-lot subdivision coming up north, and no build timeline requirement, which really makes it ideal for land banking. So Secret Beach is a very popular area. I'd say that a lot of value within Secret Beach is waterfront property, because there are so many lots that are off beach. So in order to really have, I think, real value within Secret Beach, being on the water or being, stone throw from water really is critical to the value. Now, these are new condos that are going up. What I really like about this project is that it's small. It's a boutique style. It's not a 70 room condo building. There are 4 units that are available. If you can follow my cursor, it's, I call it first floor, but it's technically the second floor, and then the third as well, second and third floors. Here, the first floor is storage and back of house, but it'll be studios and 1-bedrooms here starting at 350,000. And all 4 of the units have direct views looking at the Secret Beach water. Now, this is an ideal property for somebody who does not want to try to build their own property. That is a totally different conversation building here. If you're not here, it is very, very difficult to manage. So this is great for somebody who wants the secret beach views, maybe a plot of secret beach property on the beachfront. Right now it's going for about 350 to 400,000. It's expensive, right? So if you're able to get a condo that's already constructed for you for under 400, prime property. So it's limited inventory here. And also for that reason, I think it's a great project to watch because it's limited, right? There aren't tons of options. There are tons of opportunities for everybody to value it, I would say. All right, another project that I would highly recommend watching is Aruna Resort and Villas. This is located about half a mile west of the downtown San Pedro area. There's a community boat shuttle that'll take people back and forth. And this has opportunities starting at 179, let's say 180,000 to round up there. But this is a great option, I would say, for somebody who is looking for a unique project. It is canal front, that Bali, Tulum inspired property close to the beach. There's actually a road that goes up to Secret Beach, so you can be there in about 15 minutes. And there is developer financing here. So this project is well underway. The first phase is opening within the first quarter of 2024. And because they do have pre-construction opportunities, there's a great chance for you to get in and then just have that forced appreciation as there continues to be building within this 6-acre community here. And then last but not least, a new neighborhood to watch south is Tarpon Bay. And if you see the pin right there, that is the Tarpon Bay area. But this is an area that's really been more popular for people who want to relocate here. It's about 4.5 miles south, and you do have the lagoon front right there, the waterfront. And you do tend to find a better value right now for second row and waterfront properties. You can get waterfront for about 250. You can probably do some negotiations there. There's some seller financing happening in that area too, at a 30-year term. So again, reach out if you want those details. But I do think that this is a great area. There's you can see the name there, but Playa de Sala, a boutique hotel that is located in this area. It's a stunning property, and also a lot of new single family homes that are going up. So I think that this is a great neighborhood to keep your eye on, and even just pick up property now and build down the line if you're looking to do something. So with that being said, these are the locations of the must-watch projects. You see Platinum Point up north, Tarpon Bay there on the south, and then all that in between. Ambergris Caye is a large island, and we will continue to see more development occurring in 2024. I've heard of a few new projects that will be coming pre-construction, and obviously we'll keep you updated and keep you tuned into that. But a lot of good stuff happening in 2024, and we're excited to see too how the infrastructure is improving, which is something that is much needed here as the island continues to grow. So I just have a couple of investor advice points that I wanted to make, and then we'll answer the questions that are coming in. This is if you're buying a structure and you want to have your property be rented, make sure you have a property manager. I think sometimes people are so jaded about their Airbnb experience in either their hometown where they've managed the property. If you don't plan to live here, please make sure you have a property manager and a rental manager if you want to have your property be rented out. It's really the only way to ensure that your property is taken care of. You may have to complete a non-disclosure to get access to a profit and loss statement if the owner is even willing to give out that profit and loss statement for their rental condo. Some owners and some sellers are not, but there are many others who are. But you may be required to complete an NDA, just a heads up. And then if you're buying a property that is not yet licensed by the Belize Tourism Board and you want to rent your property out for short-term rentals, note that it can take 8 to 12 months to get that license. So if you decide to own something today, do understand that you may go a full year without having the ability to short-term rent your property because you do not have that Belize Tourism Board license. The BTB license is absolutely required in order to do short-term rentals. Now, if you're buying a property that may already have its BTB license, maybe it's located within a complex that already falls into this BTB license, you don't have to worry about that, but it's good for you to talk to your realtor and get the scoop. And then last but not least, I like to say this because I think sometimes people have the expectation that if they are taking advantage of seller financing, that they're going to be breaking even or making an income from their rental income. That doesn't tend to be the case because it is that short term here. We were talking about the 3 to 5 years. you're going to have higher monthly payments. Now, your rental income will help to cover your expenses, but you'll likely have to be putting money towards your property in order to get everything paid. So please be aware of that. I get people who are like, well, in the States, I can get 10% with my mortgage that I have there, and I'm making, netting 10% profit, and that's great. Then keep investing in the States. When you invest in Belize, it is a little bit, it's different. It's just a totally different market, and it's a totally different mindset. You're owning property here, likely with the intention to have the appreciation, because we're continuing to see that. We're continuing to see more people come down. JetBlue just started flying here in December of 2023 for the very first time from New York. They have regular flights. We have more flights coming in from a lot of the feeder markets like Houston and Dallas and Charlotte and Canadian cities now. Toronto, Calgary have flights coming in, and a lot of increase in flights. So we're continuing to see this market grow here for that average investor. We talked a lot. I gave you a lot of information. I apologize. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming, but I just really love when folks are educated and really have a good handle on the market as they are looking at real estate here. There's a lot of good things that we're expecting for 2024. And I do anticipate for it to be a strong season and a stable season, which is very important as well. If you would like a complimentary copy, we have an e-copy of our Belize Buyer's Guide. This is really for new buyers or people who just want to review all the information prior to coming down and prior to really jumping in. Email me, info@lunarealtybelize.com. I get all these emails. So you will tend to hear from me, but I would love to send this over to you along with other resource guides that we have. There's just a ton of information there, and you can get it all in written format. So I am going to see here, I'm going to answer some questions. And John said, with all the new developments on Ambergris Caye, what about supply of fresh water and disposal of sewage waste? Okay, that's a really good question. So as we talked about, a lot of developments, a lot of new construction that's happening. And so what is happening now, once you go, I'm going to go back to this map here because this map will be really handy. All right. So the bridge is where this point, this pin is located. Once you go north of the bridge and once you go down south, there's a certain point south, a couple miles south, where there's no public water there. And so it's very common here for homes and condos to have water catchment systems or wells. It really just depends on their location within the island. So they don't tend to be dependent on public water. Now, BWS, Belize Water Services, they are they're the country's company here for water supply. They have a supply plant south, and there have been talks about them increasing that and expanding it. If that'll happen, maybe, maybe not. Maybe over some period, I'm sure it'll happen, but over some period of time. But a lot of people don't tend to depend on the public utilities here, just because it may not necessarily be up to par. I know personally, I have a condo in town that I rent out. It's on the second floor. And during the Easter week, when it's just so unbelievably busy here, the water pressure in there is low, right? And so you got to find ways to really, and that's the public water, you got to find ways to make it better. We did that with a gravity fed system from the roof, but most places just tend to have their own system so that they're not dependent on the public utilities. Yeah, that's a really great question. And then you've been to Belize multiple times in the past 12 years. Awesome. Yeah, Ambergris Caye is definitely the most, I'd say the fastest growing part of the entire country. So infrastructure is always a question that comes up. And it should be, right? It rightfully should be. I know that electricity is one of the other questions that come up. When I first started coming down here in 2012, we would have brownouts or blackouts quite frequently. Now they do tend to be scheduled. So you'll get a notification from BEL, that's the nationwide provider here, that they're going to be turning off electricity from this time to work on the systems and to not have electricity. You expect not to have electricity at that point. So it's become a lot more stable. And then I know a lot of places too, if there is no public electricity, like Secret Beach, for example, Secret Beach does not have any utilities there, public utilities. So people have solar systems or generators. And that just tends to be the way that people live at Secret Beach. And so it really just depends on what you're comfortable with and then going from there. And you do tend to see a lot of the bigger developments, like Sunset Crebe, for example, Grand Crebe, they do have generator backups and their own water system. So yeah, really good question there, John. I'm glad you asked, because infrastructure is a very important question from both the rental perspective and also the lifestyle perspective. And Rick said he is coming about, oh, perfect. He's coming to Belize in July. And I would highly recommend for anybody who's looking at times to come down. July is the start of lobster season. So typically about the first 2 weeks in July, we have something called Lobster Fest. It's the reintroduction, the opening of lobster season, the reintroduction of lobster on the menus. And it's a very festive time here. It's a big 2-week celebration. People dress up like lobsters. Restaurants have lobster themed dishes. Even if you don't really like lobster, it's a very fun time to be here. So that would be Rick. Great, Rick, come on down then if your calendar allows it. And then Tony, awesome. Thank you so much for joining as well. So I know there's a lot of information, folks. I'm getting a lot more specific questions to people's individual interests. What I would say best thing to do is reach out to us, info@lunarealtybelize.com. As I mentioned, I get a copy of that email. We can send you this resource guide, or if you just have any general questions that we didn't really touch upon, or maybe we just started to skim the surface. I know it's the holiday season right now. Many of us are busy. But I just wanted to give you some insight to what we're expecting here in 2024, and hopefully you did find it helpful. We look forward to seeing you here in Belize soon, and feel free to reach out. We'd love to tell you more about what's going on and also to cover whatever it is you are looking to accomplish. Thank you, everyone.